Welcome to the Buy Box Experts podcast. We bring to light the unique opportunities brands face in today's e-commerce world.
Hello and welcome to the Buy Box Experts podcast. This is Eric Stopper. This episode is brought to you by Buy Box Experts. Buy Box Experts takes ambitious brands and makes them unbeatable. We have a team of consultants here that identify low-hanging fruit for some of your best-selling ASINs on Amazon. So if you are an Amazon seller and you think there's more market for you to squeeze out, go to buyboxexperts.com, click on the free analysis button. It's completely free, no strings attached. Although me and my team are always busy, and so I don't know how long we're going to offer it for free, but just go to buyboxexperts.com and click on the free analysis button, and we'd love to talk with you. Today, I am joined by Warren Osborne. Warren is I met him a while ago, actually, in my first semester of college. Warren is a husband, a father, and a grandfather. One of his colleagues, a friend of mine, describes him as one of the industry's biggest geniuses. He is an advisor, an investor, and an expert in developing, manufacturing, and marketing consumer products. He is an entrepreneur, a venture investor, and a philanthropist. He's invested in over 65 companies. On that list, we've got Stance and Omniture, Skull Candy, Workfront, Fusion.io, Jamba Juice. The list goes on and on. And as I was making this intro for Warren, he was sure to say that he is first and foremost an entrepreneur. He was the recipient of the American Red Cross Family Award for aiding an injured parachutist trapped on a dangerous cliff. He is one of the founding members of the Utah Angels, an investment team of experienced serial entrepreneurs who look for firms raising their Series A. Warren, so glad to have you on the show. Welcome.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Now, Warren, I talk with a lot of business owners, but I haven't brought somebody on as puzzling as you. And the reason I say puzzling is I'm sure you've heard the old adage that things, especially in business, take twice as long and twice as much money to get done.
Yeah.
And the reason I mention this is because when I look at your dossier of experience, you founded and sold a company in 11 months. You appear to have started a design company called Pebble Designs, specifically to service all the other companies that you have going. Some people would see all of these as quick wins, but the story's never that easy. I'm sure there's lots of blood and sweat that you could speak to.
Oh, yeah.
But can you talk to me about how you have been able to do so much in such short sprints of time?
Well, first of all, I think I have an instinctual passion for speed. Give a little example. The last few years, I don't do this as much, but in most of my life, if I go to a shopping mall, get out of the car, I see the 4-minute walk into the building as a waste of time. So I typically run in, and that saves about 3 minutes time, and that allows for more productivity. So I'm a little bit addicted to productivity and efficiency and speed, which are very strong traits to have when you're an entrepreneur. I'm a huge believer in speed. I actually have been asked this many times lecturing to different universities around the state. What is the biggest asset and attribute that has made you successful in starting in 11 successful companies and exiting 10 of them? And I think speed, passion, and solving all the problems are at the root of it. Speed is incredibly important in developing products. When you're developing a product, you're competing with dozens, if not hundreds, of other companies. So if you can create your product and bring it to market in a third of the time that your competition, you've got a serious advantage. And that's been one thing that's really driven me, and I think has been very, very key in making every one of the businesses that I found is successful. Maybe we can start talking a little bit about Osborne Video, the second business I founded.
Yeah, I saw you had one before that doing some like water softening. Now this is 1987, right? You're
Yeah.
23 years old
Yeah.
in 1987. And you start you start Osborne Media, and it lasts for, you're doing this for 10 years. It lasts
Yeah.
10 years, and it's basically pre-internet, right?
Yeah.
I want to know really what role video played in 1987, because this is a big year for media, right? We have The
Yeah.
Legend of Zelda comes out, Final
Yeah.
Fantasy, right? The first of the Final Fantasies, which was this
Yeah.
huge, just absolute smashing success. It's the year, Wall Street came out with Michael Douglas and Charlie
Yeah.
Sheen. So just amazing video culture. Can you just tell me about this experience you had?
Well, at that point in time, VHS was the YouTube of the day. Now, that sounds like we're talking about ancient relics and dinosaur land, but VHS was the high tech for media of the day. What happened was I was going to school at Brigham Young University, and we had our first son, Skylar. He was born 6 weeks premature, almost died, emergency cesarean, and we had a $25,000 bill on our hands. Well, the insurance company refused to pay the bill because we had switched insurance, waited about 10 days, got pregnant, and they called it a pre-existing condition because he came before 9 months, came early. So they refused to pay a $25,000 bill. Now, put that in perspective. We're broke, poor students. A $25,000 bill 33 years ago was similar to maybe $75,000 today.
And you're studying Mandarin at BYU.
I'm studying Mandarin Chinese with some business focus as well. Yeah,
Okay.
Asian studies. Well, I had little choice but to go make money. Now, I already had aspirations to start a business clear back in high school. But now the stimulus was there. So I took on 2 full-time jobs, worked out at Geneva Steel, went to work doing the yard care for a rich guy up on the hill, and I started the business. Well, we assessed our assets. We had 2 assets other than what's inside the brain. One was a chair, a sofa that we got out of a dumpster when we were managing these apartment complexes.
Okay.
The other asset we had was a video camera that we purchased when we were coming home from China. We went over to China and studied to polish off my Mandarin Chinese. And that was the asset. And this is one of the points that I've really learned. You build on your assets. Companies that are built on their assets have a much higher chance of success than building something on an asset that you don't have. Now, that might be an asset that you've learned or a physical asset, but I'm a big believer in building on your assets. That's the asset that we had. So I'm in the video business. Well, what to record, what to do.
Yeah.
High school graduations were coming up in a few weeks. So I thought, well, we'll record the high school graduations. How can we ensure that we get these gigs? So I called almost every high school in the state of Utah over a few days' time, and I offered to record it for free. I said, we'll give the school a free copy. What do we get? At practice and at commencement, I get to pass out flyers to the students and to the parents.
Oh, win-win.
That was the win-win. And so I got 10 jobs. At one of these places, I sold 100 tapes.
For how much are we talking? 1987.
$14.95.
Okay, so you made about $1,500.
Yeah.
We've got $23,500 to go, right?
Yep. And at one of these, nobody bought a single tape.
Oh.
So you can see that spreading it out over 10 different schools actually gave me a higher chance of success. Well, at one of these schools, Roy High School, someone came up to me thinking that I was just a cameraman for a much bigger film videography company and said, can you guys give us a bid? Do you guys do other type of video work? What do you think I said as an entrepreneur? Oh yeah, we can produce whatever you want. What do you have in mind?
Yeah, let me look at my schedule.
Yeah. And they were he was in charge or part of the group that was orchestrating the National Junior Olympics. It was being held at BYU that year, track and field event for all the high school champions. And so this free notion worked with me. They were getting bids from several other recording studios.
Mm-hmm.
And so I gave a bid and I said, free. I'll record this 14 hours a day for a week for free, but I get the loudspeaker every 30 minutes for a minute. And I get to have a booth down there right where all the people are to pre-sell my tapes. Well, that turned out really good. I pre-sold 500 VHS tapes of a highlights reel of that. Now, I didn't know diddly squat about price elasticity, so I really screwed up. These should have been priced at $49.95, in my opinion. If they would have been priced at $49.95, I think I would have sold 400 to 450. Instead, I sold 500 at $14.95. Dumb mistake, but you don't know squat until you've made mistakes and charged through it.
Did you have any mentors walking you through this process? I mean, you're at BYU, and I went to BYU, that's my alma mater, and they beat their chest about how good their mentorship programs are.
The mentoring programs at BYU pretty much developed and grew after I was there. So I really didn't have any mentors. So I was making mistakes very frequently. So I recorded this whole thing, got done, and fortunately, now my customers funded the start of this business, right? I had no capital raised and I had no capital myself, so I used the customers to fund it. Well, I had to get the editing equipment, so I spent maybe 3/4 of all the money to buy the editing equipment. Mm-hmm. And I edited for 7+ weeks. Because back then, this isn't like a word processor where you can just go in and just stick something in. You had to lay down your track in sequential order. So you had to kind of pre-edit it on paper, decide what you want, and then go put each of those pieces in track sequentially. There's no way to go insert something later. What
was the video editing software program tool of the day?
It was on a Commodore Amiga. I can't remember the name of the software, but it was ancient technology. Well, anyway, I got done with this, and then I went and got my bids to record this. It was about 2.5 hour video, and my two low bids were $10 and $12 to copy it. And I was like, what the heck? I am hosed.
Yeah.
I didn't have near enough money left. I had already spent most of the money on editing gear, so I had no choice. Well, necessity is the mother of invention. I'm so glad that happened because I had to find a way to solve that problem. And solving the problem actually created the next generation of Osborne video. So to solve the problem, I went and found that I could buy these tapes for $2 each. I found a bunch of coupons where I could mail them in and get like 30 to 50 cents off each one. And then I went down to Blockbuster Video, Hollywood Rental, and Cougar Rental and rented VHS VCRs, about 30 of them a night for about $1 a piece. Wired them all together with Radio Shack cables and recorded these 500 videos myself. And I looked at this and I thought, I just slaved for a week recording and 7 weeks editing. And these guys who own the VHS duplication facilities are going to make 90% of the money in just a few hours of work. When I just worked for 8 weeks, I thought, I'm in the wrong business. So I stayed in the video production business, but it became more of a marketing lead gen tool where the production business fed the duplication. And so I took all the profits and bought a VHS VCR. Then I would duplicate 10 tapes, 50 tapes, 100 tapes, buy another VCR. The Donny Osmond fan club became one of my first key clients, where I duplicated all the old Christmas specials they had, and the fans would buy them. And then I just started expanding from there. A few years later, I was 27 years old. I had 125 employees and a 34,000 square foot factory duplicating millions of VHS tapes.
Did you need permission to do these?
No, they were mostly corporate training videos.
Sure.
And some entertainment videos. Someone had a wedding or something. We make.
Yeah, we're not like ripping off Disney. We're taking people's basically homemade videos and duplicating them.
And business videos, training videos. But as we got a little larger, we started to do media. We started a little bit of, Hollywood video and a few things like that. So it grew to also we started manufacturing the VHS tapes themselves. We imported the tape on big reels from like Korea, and I'd go to China and buy the VHS shells, the plastic housing, and we bought these $400,000 machines. We had 4 of them. So that's $1.2 million of high-speed equipment where they could duplicate a 2-hour video in just like 20 seconds or so. And then we wind that into the cassettes after duplication. So we actually got into the manufacturing business. We stayed in video editing and production and film production and started doing a lot of infomercials and corporate training videos, things like that. But where the real money was mass duplication. But it gave me a huge entry into packaging because we had to put packaging on nearly all of these cassettes. And that really helped lead into the next business after I sold Osborne Video. Now, the reason I sold is I didn't love the manufacturing business. I loved learning, and I learned a ton about manufacturing, but I didn't actually like manufacturing business. I loved more of the innovation side, the engineering side, the creative side.
Sure.
So I thought, VHS is going to die. I could see that DVD was coming. It was a no-brainer to me that DVD was going to take over, and I would have to pivot into DVD, build a DVD plant to grow, and I just didn't want to do that for another decade. So I sold before the peak when there was still a big market,
sure.
And I way undersold. I was too ignorant to hire an investment banker. I didn't have any advisors to coach me to buy an investment banker. So I probably sold for half what it was really worth.
Ouch.
But I still did extremely well. I'm in my 20s and sold, had a really good exit.
You're in this VHS space. You probably had done a couple of CDs, DVDs at that point, right? Just to try it out. I do want to talk about C-Stone because that is something that I think everybody listening has heard about. But I want to, before I get to 2002, I want to get to 1997, April. Okay, you're now 33, and you get introduced to these guys at a startup called Ancestry.com.
Yep.
I worked for this company at one point. I've talked with these guys. I've done business with these guys. Can you tell me what was going on in 1997? Because they were founded that same year, weren't they? Or maybe just the year before? What they had going?
At that point, they weren't even online. It was more research, development, and I helped them a little bit in moving to China, became a board member. One of their first investors invested a few $100,000, and I saw huge potential for the ability to automate the tracking of ancestral files. And this was long before DNA was ever concocted as a business model, but it was just the ancestry collection, development, and monetization of it. So I was pretty impressed with that, and it was one of my earlier investments out of the 65 that I've done.
And it was a good one.
It turned out really good. It was up about 18x before the 2001 tech crisis that crashed. And in 2001, there was a big cram down of about 18 to 19 to 1. So I didn't really make much on my Ancestry investment because of that cram down. If I'd have sold a year earlier, I'd have killed it.
Right.
Sounds like if I'd have sold 3 or 4 years later, I'd have killed it too. But I made a little bit, but not huge.
Did they have their eyes on DNA? Was that even a thing that they were considering? Did anybody see it coming?
Not at that point in time.
Because even the FBI didn't start using DNA until 1998. So this was very, very, very early.
Yeah, it was way early. This is a really great example of the best ideas of businesses are almost never the first idea. If you're stuck on your first idea and not malleable and willing to pivot, you're usually going to die.
Sure.
You've got to be able to be willing and able to pivot.
Well, it seems like you took a pretty big stutter step, right? This pivot, because 2001, 2002, right?
Yeah.
Like, you end your time as an advisor in Ancestry, you sell off your shares, and then you go back and you get an MBA from Duke. What was kind of the thinking there?
I kind of always thought I wanted to get an MBA, and Duke had a global executive program, and I was very much global because I was importing stuff from Asia. I speak Chinese fluently, doing a lot of business internationally, and I wanted to expand that and become more astute in international business. And I wanted to move more international on my next business. A couple learnings from Osborne Video and other businesses. For me, speed, persistence, pivoting, and solving all the problems. One thing I would mention, you're only as strong as your weakest link. If you do 99 things near perfect and just nail them, but one critical ingredient is broken or fails, the business fails. Well, so you have to fix all the problems.
That begs the question then, because I think I view speed and agility as two mutually exclusive concepts. If you're moving really fast, I feel like there's a tendency to make a lot of mistakes and to sometimes forget about those things. Whereas if you're agile, it's more of that, like, failing really quick. Is it just semantics? Do you kind of view those as the same? How are you able to avoid making lots of mistakes at this speed?
Well, I make lots of mistakes, but I also fix mistakes fast.
Is this like a Andon cord kind of thing? Like, like the Japanese manufacturing, like, okay, something's wrong, let's just shut it down and get it fixed, and then let's keep going fast.
Yeah, I am a huge believer in speed. I operate very fast, and I make a lot of mistakes. When I make a mistake, I see the mistake, and I fix the mistake very, very quickly. This kind of leads us to C-Stone. Another core principle is build on your assets. Well, I had experience with media and packaging. So C-Stone was first founded on selling accessories like CD cases, jewel cases, DVD cases to my old competitors because I was very efficient in that.
Yeah, and you know them all. You got everybody's in your Rolodex.
Then I heard about AOL, and I heard that AOL was doing many hundreds of millions of CDs a year, and they were doing packaging for those CDs, putting them in a tin box and mailing them to almost every American every month. And so I cold called them, and I said, guys, I just sold a VHS manufacturing business. I know media manufacturing inside and out. I think I can save you a lot of money. And I know China extremely well, and I speak Chinese fluently. So they hired me as a consultant, paid me a few $1,000s a day, and I made a huge mistake. I should have negotiated a percentage of the savings. I saved them $30 million in a 10-day engagement.
Did you have any idea that you were going to make that kind of impact? You probably saw the business and noticed its inefficiencies, but $30 million, you got to look into a crystal ball to figure that kind of.
I know. I didn't realize going into it that there was that much savings to be had.
You'll never make that mistake again, though.
But I'm a significant I'm a good negotiator. I know how to negotiate with the Chinese, and I showed them pricing at other vendors that was dramatically lower. And I went with them over to China and met with most of their vendors and just helped them negotiate pricing down. Kind of there was a little bit of a threat to those vendors that they would be taken to other suppliers.
Sure.
And so the vendors came and matched those pricings, and they saved $30 million. Well, while I was there, I saw the opportunity to make tin boxes for them because they were using tin as their primary medium. And I said to them, I'm not going to make the same mistake again. I said, I think I can save you another $30 million, maybe $50 million on the boxes, but I don't want to be the consultant. I want to be your supplier, and I'll save you that much. Well, then I went and found about 40 different factories that were related to tin, narrowed it down to the top 10, flew over to China again, met with all of them, helped the top 3 install automated assembly lines because they were doing it too manual. They needed to put it on a conveyor belt and have it speed up. So I said, you've got to put an assembly line in here. You got to have a conveyor belt in here. And I helped them. This is where my experience of manufacturing for the prior 10 years really helped out to polish off some of these factories. And we built up these factories to a point. The first bid, they only could do 1 to 200,000 units a month. I had a goal to get to 8 million boxes a month. So they had to really expand. Well, within 6 months, we were up to a capacity of 8 million a month.
You mentioned that the manufacturing side was not your favorite.
No.
Yeah, you find yourself back in China, full circle, right? This is we're talking 20 years ago, and you're looking at these production lines, speaking Chinese, just hustling your heart out for manufacturing. Is it just because you see this big payout, this $50 million, thing that you're going to get a cut of, and you're willing to pay the price?
Well, I'm not running the manufacturing plan. I'm just giving good advice. High-level advice and learnings from what I learned the prior years. And I'm more on the creative side and the supply. Well, I'm just managing the entire business.
Before I forget to ask, because people in 2019, 2020, millennials, Gen Z, whatever, these people who are interested in business, they wonder right now, what is the thing that is going to help them in their career the most that they should start learning right now? Because back in 1987, you would have had no idea that the manufacturing would have been that valuable. And so, if you could give some advice to people listening, what should they start learning now for 20 years from now?
This leads to a perfect story which will answer that question so poignantly. So in that point in time, we were just manufacturing what they wanted.
Okay.
And we grew that business. 2.5 years into it, we did 30 million in sales with 10 million EBITDA free cash flow. So very successful, that young, to be up to 30 million in sales with 10 million profit.
Still tin, right? Like they're still using the tin products?
Tin boxes, yeah.
So this is where you're looking into the crystal ball.
But we were just replicating what they had already been doing. And we were about efficiency, supply chain management, and we could make 5 to 8 million tin boxes in 3.5 weeks. This is new artwork, everything.
Nice.
Well, AOL had some management shifts, some management changes, and they came to all of their vendors. They had vendors that were doing plastic, paper. We were doing tin. There were several others doing tin. They went to all their vendors and they said, we're going to award all the business for each material to 2 vendors. So give us your best bid. They were basically leveraging us to get their pricing down.
Sure.
Well, we did our homework. There's probably 7 or 8 different tin suppliers. We were probably first or second place in quantity. And we did our homework and we put in our bid and we lost the bid by 1/3 of a cent. Well, not only that, AOL said, we changed our mind. We're going to award it all to 1.
Oh.
So we were second place, but they said, we're going to award it all to 1. And so we're effectively out of business because 99% of our business, a $30 million business making 10 million profit, is gone. So we had a little bit of sadness around the office, to say the least, depression maybe. So I called everybody in, I met with everybody, and I said, what does AOL really want? Do you think is their core need a cheaper tin box? No, they want more sales. The tin box and the CD are just a means of marketing to increase sales. How can we help them with their core true objective? Increase sell rate. I said, we haven't done anything in innovation. All we are is efficiency and mass production and chopping out every fraction of a penny we can. But we aren't making better boxes. So we are now going to deploy a vision to make better boxes. And in the next 90 days, we invented over 60 different boxes. We had every one of our factories that we're working with a dozen plus factories, and we had every one of them show us new innovations. Our whole design team, we hired a whole bunch more designers. We're just about new innovations. We created a box that had a window in it where you could actually have this little bubble where you could see into it. Another one, you'd push a button and the CD would spring out. And we just added massive innovation, and that's all we did 24/7 for several weeks. And we started showing them these new boxes, and they started testing them. They do like a 50,000 test against their status quo, and in most of the tests, our new innovation boxes blew away the old status quo.
So just as a pause for those who might have no idea what we're talking about, because some of you have never even really seen a DVD box. You just, Netflix, Disney. Patent number US 20060124479A1. If I'm reading that correctly, right? Like, you and Brian Dunford are the two names on that patent. You are the original inventors of the CD cases that allow you to slide the decorative packaging into the outside, sleeve of these CD cases.
Yeah, we got a lot of patents on different innovations.
Also for you moved to gift cards.
Yeah, so that comes to the next story. So actually, I misspoke earlier. I said we did 30 million in sales. No, we did 20 million in sales. When we hit 30 million was after the pivot to innovation. So after getting fired by AOL and then inventing all these new boxes, we grew from 20 million to 30 million. That's when we made the 10 million. Sorry, I misspoke earlier.
And so interesting. So those new boxes got them more business, like
way more,
significantly more business, and you got a big cut of that.
They made a dramatically higher close rate because the boxes were more sexy, they're more innovative, they're more appealing, and people would open them. The old boxes became generic, almost generic and boring.
This might be kind of a distraction, but I'm curious because I come from a design background. Did the filmmaking industry have to make adjustments then in their marketing? Because then they have this tool where they can advertise to people on the outside of their DVD boxes. Did they start taking these really awesome still pictures to promote their stuff and start experimenting with different colors and stuff like that?
There's always, whenever you innovate anything, there's always a huge ripple effect of knockoff artists and pivoting off of your new innovations in many different industries. So yes, we saw a lot of knockoffs and a lot of variety, but we hadn't yet gone into the film industry. So what happened is within a year after going to 30 million in sales with AOL, we saw that AOL was on a death spiral. And we thought, if we don't pivot again into some other customers, we're going to go down with AOL. So we said, we are now not only good at making 5 to 8 million boxes a month, but we're now have the innovation and design expertise around packaging. Where can we apply this best? And we came up with 3 markets: cosmetics, motion picture film, and the gift card industry. The gift card market was $77 billion that prior year, with 1.5 billion gift cards sold. And there was no dedicated packaging accessory for gift cards. Everyone was just going over to the Hallmark aisle and buying a greeting card
Sure.
to throw the gift card in.
Right.
Well, that's not a dedicated accessory, so we saw a big opportunity there. So it was all flat paper envelopes prior. And you may want to add a couple pictures in there from the deck I sent you of some of these tin boxes. So we just pivoted all these AOL tin boxes and wood boxes. We were doing plastic boxes and wood boxes and paper boxes for AOL too. We just pivoted over and started making them pretty and fancy and sexy and putting Santa Claus and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer on it and other things for holidays. And we pioneered the gift card accessory industry, and that thing exploded into hundreds of millions of boxes.
Now that story that you just told me was incredibly smart people putting their axe to the grindstone and just figuring all this out. But do you feel lucky at all that you were able to stumble into any of these huge opportunities?
Yeah, there's definitely luck with every business. There's nobody that's successful that doesn't have some luck. But I would attribute more of it to building on the assets. If we would have tried to enter a new industry that wasn't about packaging, we probably would have failed. But we were packaging experts and design experts, so we built on our assets. Just like VHS, I built on the asset of having a camera, and then starting C-Stone to build on the asset of having already done media. I built on something I knew, and that gave us a definitely strong advantage. Well, we made all kinds of accessories, stuffed animals, little sleighs, little toys,
just
anything
to hold these cards, just
hold
all
the cards.
about customer experience. That's really what you were doing for these companies.
Exactly. And then here's another great learning, and that is marketing exposure. I call it the blue box. So this is how we penetrated almost all major retailers were using our packages, the big ones. We built a big blue box about this big, and we would load it with 50 to 60 of our gift card boxes. Put it inside, put in a catalog and a cover letter, and we'd find out who the buyer was for the gift card category and who that buyer's boss was. And we'd send them each a big blue box of 50 to 60 gift card accessories. And then the sales team would call them within 1 to 5 days after that box arrived. And that was probably one of the best innovations that I've ever done. And that's because that got us in.
Gift too, right? Like, and why a blue box? Did that matter?
It just happened to be a blue color. Didn't really matter. Then we pivoted again into program management. So we saw that these retailers needed more. They needed the displays for the gift cards. They needed a whole bunch of program management. We pivoted into that. We ended up becoming just dominating in that category. We made the displays, populated the displays with our boxes, and then they put their gift cards into them. And we were doing that for Walmart and all kinds of companies. Another little anecdotal story. I flew back with our sales manager to meet with Walmart. We went after the jugular. Walmart was one of our first customers. And went to meet with them, and we had already applied for a patent for gift card tin boxes.
Sure.
It hadn't been awarded yet. Went into Walmart. Walmart said to us, these are beautiful, these are great, they're awesome, but we already have a dozen tin vendors. They said, we even probably have a whole pile of tin in the back warehouse that we could just convert into these things. Why should we go with you when we can just go with our existing tin vendors? We already have relationships there. We're already doing huge volume. I already get good pricing. And I said, well, we've got 9 patent claims. And one of the patent claims, which was the core patent claim, was this: the tin and the dielectric coating on the tin protected the gift card from being demagnetized. That was the claim. So if you put a magnet over a card, it will erase that information and the card's dead. But when the tin box was there, you put it in it and it wouldn't erase it. And I told them about that patent, and they said, well, we could just go make these ourselves. And I said, well, if you do, we're going to have to enforce that patent, because if we let Walmart do it, everybody's going to do it. So there'll be treble damages, and we'll have to come after you guys. We got a PO the next week.
So Walmart and Amazon and eBay, they're bullies. Can we just be honest about that, right? They're typically bullies in all their buying processes.
Yeah.
You strong-arm the bully.
Yeah, I did strong-arm the bully. It was kind of a gutsy move.
And you're how old at this point? Like 40, not even? Something like that?
No, I think I'm 30-something.
And what? And you just – had you ever enforced a patent up to that point?
No.
So you – so you didn't even know what enforcing a patent actually looked like either, and you just went for it, right for the jugular.
I just said, yeah, we're going to have to enforce this, and I said our patent attorney thinks we're going to get 7 of the 9. Well, this buyer didn't want to be responsible for a lawsuit on Walmart, so he gave us the PO, and we did hundreds of millions of boxes with Walmart over the next few years.
So those display boxes that I see in Walmart right now that are made out of cardboard or whatever, some of them are wood, I think. Are those are C-stone?
We were doing similar displays early on. The PowerPoint presentation that I sent you has a whole bunch of the examples of the displays. And
I mean, I feel like I see these now. This is very much the design that I see in these, and they just bring it in right on a pallet, and it looks really nice.
Yeah, they're still selling the similar tin boxes, just with changing up the artwork each year. So one thing you learn is everything is a remix. Nobody invents anything completely raw, pure on their own. The plane wasn't invented by any one company. Google didn't invent search. Apple didn't invent the iPhone or the computer. You take the best of the status quo and you improve upon that foundational core. That's what we did with tin boxes. We applied it into a new category and provide iterative improvements. So everything is a remix.
So I had John Richards on a few weeks ago, and he's all about the lean startup, right? That's his whole chant. Did your team, were you walking into Hallmarks and Walmarts and asking people, hey, how do you like this design? How much would you pay for it? Were you doing that type of validation?
Oh, yeah. We did a lot of validation where we take it to customers, to friends, to families, to stores. And when we'd send these boxes out with the 60 designs, we'd also ask their input. What else would they like to see? We're constantly gathering data. This leads to another pivot extension. Pivoting is critical in entrepreneurism. Had I never pivoted, every one of my businesses would have failed instead of succeeded. So you have to drive, but you have to pivot and you have to adapt, and times are always changing. So the other market we saw was the motion picture film market. So we went into that. We were really good at tin boxes. So we went in and we made the King Kong tape, or the King Kong tin for a VHS tape.
Sure.
Show that. We did the Friends case, a collection of the whole Friends series. We did The Lost. We did MASH. We did The Incredibles. We did Neo, where we put a statue of Neo inside a clear box with all the series of The Matrix inside. And so we became the go-to supplier for the collector series motion picture films.
Do they still sell these types of collectable items?
Yeah.
So I could go and find one of these Warren Osborne C-Stone originals, probably.
Yep. So, I mean, most of these have a shelf life of probably 3 to 6 years, but their ghost lives on because everything is a remix. They pivot off of them. They tweak off of them. Well, one day after we were doing most of the collectible packages for Warner Brothers, Warner Brothers at the time commanded 33% of the world's DVD motion picture film business.
Man.
And they came to us and they said they were just super happy. We had a super great relationship, and they said HDVD and or Blu-ray is coming. Would you guys please throw your hat in the ring and design a package for that?
Wow.
We said, sure.
Of course.
And there were dozens of other design firms doing it. Well, we did something different than the other design firms. The other design firms were showing PowerPoint presentations, putting up on a computer screen, and so forth, just illustrations. We went out and made 8 to 10 different designs. And we presented Warner Brothers with all of these designs, actual physical samples, so they could choose what they liked. And when the difference between being able to open and close and touch and feel our packages is why we won that award. We got a 5-year contract to do exclusive, all high definition packaging for Warner Brothers.
A side question that I hate to ask, but I have to ask. Your family's grown by this point.
Yeah.
And you are just still hustling, right? Like making probably hundreds of millions of dollars as a company and probably as an individual. Did you ever see a stopping point? Did you ever see like, oh, you know what? Like once I get to here, I'm probably gonna like stop pushing really hard.
I never set that mark, but I wasn't making a profit of hundreds of millions of dollars.
Sure.
That one's a little bit high, but we were doing pretty well. I never really found a place at that young age where I said, I'm ready to stop. Now, those thoughts come to mind now as I'm 55 years old. You know what? I'm going to open the door. Can I pause for a moment? I'm going to turn.
Of course.
Another important thing, innovation within constraints. You have to realize the constraints that you have when you're innovating. The Blu-ray disc package was a great example. First of all, it was the Blu-ray disc package or HD DVD, and we didn't know which one was going to win. At the time, Warner Brothers was endorsing HD DVD. So we actually made the package blue for HD DVD
and maroonish,
and blue for those who were going after Blu-ray, and then the market was split about 50-50, and we didn't know which one would win. We made all of our molds without the logo impressed in it, and then we silk screened the logo of Blu-ray or HD on top of that. That way we could use one package for either channel. But we had some constraints. The retailers wanted a dramatically smaller box, particularly Walmart, so they could fit more on the shelf. They wanted like a 33% size reduction in the box. The film studios wanted the package to look more expensive and more valuable. Small usually looks cheaper. So those are competing constraints. The studios wanted a lower cost than the prior one, and the assembly houses wanted a package that would work on all their billions of dollars of automated equipment.
Sure.
So we had to do innovation within those 4 major constraints. And so we made each of these packages work with it. And the ultimate package won on a few things. We put a little bar window at the top that was see-through, and it was transparent, and you could have Blu-ray or HD DVD on the top, and there was a little bar window there. We had a theft protection where 2 little bars inside crisscross each over like this, because Walmart and other retailers, people would squeeze the tape, squeeze the box, pull out the disc and steal it and put the package back on the shelf. So we put a theft protection mechanism. We put scratch protection in it. We rounded the edges. So if you look at an old DVD case versus the Blu-ray case, ours are rounded edges. So it's much smaller, but it looks way more valuable. We added a locking mechanism. We put a little feature inside where you could put in a little pivoting arm, which would hold 2 other CDs. So you could put in 3 to 5 DVDs in a box.
So that was your company's innovation as well.
Yeah.
These stacks of CDs inside of a single case.
Oh yeah.
Amazing. Everyone has seen those. Now,
Yeah.
The audience that listens to this podcast, they're very much they're product companies, right? These are CEOs, CMOs, account managers, people who are interested in doing a better job at what they do. So I want to take all these lessons and I want to distill it down for the people who are listening, who are thinking, okay, Warren, you are this like incredible super entrepreneur, but I'm some punk kid. I'm 23. I'm going to school right now. I have no idea what to do. You took incremental innovation, and typically what a lot of people will do in this market is they'll say, okay, what's the most trending thing on Amazon? Let me go find a manufacturer. Let me go look on Alibaba, and I will just get another one of these, and I'll sell it, and I'll copy it. But from what it sounds like, you would probably encourage people to, sure, go and find a trending product, go and find a manufacturer, but then have them add something just a little bit extra, right? Some incremental innovation that differentiates.
Very, very well said. At the core, my foundational success and theory comes back exactly to that. Take something that is really growing, something that's going to be big, something that's got a double-digit growth rate, and add 1, 2, or 3 innovations to it. I actually caution entrepreneurs not to add 8 or 10 things at one time. Because if you add 10 things and I add 2 things, you're going to take probably 5 times the time to get your product to market. And I'll beat you to market and then add more innovation later. So I actually think you're better off putting all of your resources on 1, 2, or 3 things for phase 1, and then do a 2.0 later and add a few more features, then do a 3.0, rather than trying to do too much too early.
Sure.
That leads us to selling. I sold C-Stone twice. I sold the DVD, the HD DVD / Blu-ray packaging contract, and I sold that way too cheap and way too early. This was the 3rd business that I sold, realizing I screwed up, Warren. You really blew it. I should have got an investment banker, taken it to a worldwide auction, and I think I would have got 10 to 25 times more money for the Blu-ray case. There's been 2 billion of these made now.
Wow. How
so I sold it premature, and just because you're good at packaging doesn't mean you know diddly squat about selling a business. So get the right counsel, or learn a lot when you screw up, which is what I did. That's what I did. So that leads us to the next story. So the gift card packaging business, I was getting offers almost weekly to invest in the business or buy the business in the $90+ million range. 96 million was typical. This is, you know, just a few year old, less than 3 years into the gift card packaging business. And I decided I'm not going to do the same mistake I did before. So I went to the top world-leading investment bankers, Goldman Sachs, Merrill Lynch, Houlihan Lokey, and all of them wanted to take us to market. And we ended up going with Houlihan because they had a little bit more consumer product experience. And all of the bankers thought if we went that year and ran a full auction, instead of getting 96 million for the business, they thought we'd get 130 to 140 million for the business by running the auction. So I was committed not to make the same mistake. So what happened that year? 2008.
Ooh, financial crisis.
Yeah.
Poor Merrill Lynch.
Banks are down 50%.
50. It's like 80.
Real estate's down 50+%. Guess what? The gift industry's down 80 to 85%.
People are feeling it.
I'm selling an accessory for a gift. So instead of you buying 10 gift cards for employees and family, you buy 2. And instead of going over and buying a $3 gift card box for it, you decide just give them in a 1-2 penny envelope.
Sure.
So
back in the gift cards they go.
Yeah. So we still did 20 million in gift card sales that year, still did 5 million in profit, but we had 300 interested parties and over 100 LOIs in Q1. Not one of them could raise a dollar in November, December to buy the business.
That's letter of intent for people who don't know what an LOI is.
Yeah. And so it was crazy. So I watched $100 million vaporize. So I'm really good at losing $100 million in 1 year because I did it in 2008.
Oh, I hope I never have to say that sentence. I'm really good at losing $100 million in a single year.
Yeah.
That had to hurt.
There's not much you could do about it, but,
Right.
but you learn. The thing about failure is you learn, I think, 10 times more going through a failure and fighting through it and pivoting out of it and innovating out of it than you do studying it. Studying, go ahead.
Well, I had so you know Tom Peterson at BYU.
Yeah.
So when I was running my company, Ruby, he assessed it, right? He looked at it as an investor would. And he told me, Eric, I think you should take this business behind the barn, and I think you should put a bullet in its head and move on. And I did not listen. And that company is great, and I think they have a great product now. But at the time, I should have gone for something much easier. We're talking like an $875,000 investment in the NIH trying to get this like medical device funded. But I didn't listen. So at what point do you put a bullet in the business's head and move on to the next thing?
Well, there's a third alternative, and that is pivoting out of the business. You see C-Stone, we pivoted from one to another, and each time we got better and stronger and more nimble and faster. And so if we didn't pivot on each one of these, we would have failed in all of them.
So pick a good niche and then just be open and flexible to pivoting.
Be open and flexible and pivot fast. So that leads us to the next one we want to talk about. I started a company called Soul Juice. We didn't pick the name for it yet, but there's two types of things you can do in business. You can solve pain, or you can provide pleasure. It's easier actually to sell something when you remove pain. Providing pleasure is also a great way to build a business. If you can do both, your chances of success are dramatically higher. This is a very important learning for a young entrepreneur. I wish someone would have had this talk with me when I was first getting started. Well, this is after C-Stone, I sold it during the low market, week 2 in March of 2019. It's the lowest the stock market hit. That's when I sold C-Stone. And I won't say what I sold it for, but it was a tiny fraction of what it would have sold for if I'd have sold it 1 year earlier. So I saw that most people were running out of battery life on their cell phone midday to mid-afternoon. And I'm talking super majority, probably 60, 75% of people were running out of power.
I fit that majority.
Yeah. Today, they last much longer than they did back then. I saw that the tablet and the cell phone market, smartphone market were growing so fast, and they were incredible. Let's rate them between a 95 and 100 on visual quality, on technical quality, but let's rate them between a 5 and a 10 on acoustic quality. So I saw pain in two ways: batteries dying and the sound not even being remotely close to the visual quality. Then tablets were growing like crazy. They went from, in 2011, 50 million, 2012, 122 million, 2013, 172 million, 2016, 282 million. That's the demand. I looked at Apple and I saw their really killer, sexy aluminum. And packaging, people buy on impression more than they buy on fact.
People buy on impression more than they buy on fact. So all about customer experience from the beginning to the end.
It's all about what they perceive your company is. So packaging is powerful. Your visual video marketing is powerful. Apple did a genius move by making their laptops, their phones, their tablets out of anodized aluminum. It just looks twice as valuable as their competition. So I'm sitting one day next to my Apple monitor on the screen, and it has these beautiful rounded edges over the top and a flat side on it. And I thought that would be a great design for a speaker. So I cut out a little corner of that monitor in my brain, and that's where I got the idea to launch what ultimately became Braven, the portable speaker company. But what was I going to do? I was going to solve the battery dying problem and improve the acoustic quality. Those were my two foundational theses.
Solving the battery dying for the phone.
For the phone,
so
yes.
Create just a giant speaker, not a giant one, like a portable one that somebody can plug their phone into.
Correct. And we put a USB port in there and filed for patents all around the world, and were awarded worldwide patents for a portable speaker to recharge your cell phone or smartphone device.
And everybody rips that off now.
Now that's all ripped off.
I've seen is there any way to protect it nowadays?
If we were there, we would be sending letters and going after the competition because we have unequivocal patents on that.
Wow.
But we were the first to make a portable speaker a charging device. The name of the company, though, was Spar, and our goal was to sound better than Bose at the same price point and better than all the competition. Because my theory was, if we went into mass retailers, my experience was mostly with physical retailers more so than with the Amazon. My Amazon experience is much less than brick and mortar stores. My theory was, though, they tested side by side. Why would they bring in a new brand that they didn't even know the name of if it didn't sound superior? So we said, we're going to sound better than Bose at each price point. And we got on the Ellen DeGeneres show. And we have Ellen DeGeneres being recorded. You can even cut this into this audio if you want, saying something effective. This is the hottest speaker on the market from Spar. And we were able to get on the Ellen DeGeneres show. We bought Apple iPods, and we gave away a Spar speaker together with the Apple iPod to everyone in the studio audience. And I think that helped us get us on. And it looked like a partnership between Spar and Apple. And Ellen's saying this is the hottest speaker on the market, but it hadn't even been released yet. Well, the speakers came in right before, and the acoustic quality of the factory failed to meet our specification.
Oh, bummer.
So it still sounded fine, but it didn't blow you away.
Bummer.
So we had pre-sold 2,000 of them to consumers, to friends and family. We sent them all an email saying, we'll refund your money now, or we can send you this. And when the new ones come out in 4 months, we'll give you a free one.
That's easy.
Everyone but one person wanted the refund. Everyone else.
1,999 people and one yoker didn't take the free deal.
Yeah, but those people became huge advocates because they got 2 free speakers for the price of one. Well, not only did the speakers not come in with acoustic quality that met our standards, so we took to the dump. We could have sold those. They were all pre-sold. We could have sold those 5 times over. But I didn't think we'd be able to get back into those retailers. So I said, we're going to take them to the dump, and we're going to retool, go to a new factory, and make a better speaker. So we took $700,000 of speakers to the dump.
Oh.
And
painful.
During the same period of time, our sales team went to Europe, and they had over 50 distributors that were interested in carrying Spar. But almost all of them said, you got to change the name, because Spar means discount budget in Germany.
Oh.
And there's like 12,000 Spar stores over there, and it's kind of like a Dollar General 7-Eleven store.
Sure.
So we're going to launch this highest end aluminum speaker that has extra features that no one else in the world has, and we're going to call it Dollar General 7-Eleven. And that's really what it was. So nobody in Europe wanted to carry us unless we changed the name. So we spent the next month and brainstormed and finally came up with the name Braven. We had already invested $80,000 to buy the name Spar. I think Spar in the US would have been phenomenal. Would have gone great in Asia, but not in Europe. Spar sounds like a friendly wrestle. It's a four-letter word. I think it's a great brand. But Braven was phenomenal. And so we relaunched, went to a new factory, and now every speaker that we launched from then on out sounded better than all competition that we could find to a lay ear. You could look at them and play them side by side, and it was a clear no-brainer. We only launched with 3 features: aluminum, the USB port, and then better sound. We also added a little bit of durability where we put a silicone shell around one of them so it would be durable. So if you dropped it on the floor, it wouldn't break. And with those 3 features, Braven took off like a rocket ship.
And then fast forward, right, to 2013, I think is when the sale of Braven happened.
Yeah.
And it was which one? Because it was called the best M&A
transaction of the year for small markets. Yeah.
The thing that I think a lot of people are wondering from you, Warren, is how do I become the Braven, right? And I think you've spoken to a lot of those points, right? Like fail fast, pick niches, incremental innovation. You serendipitously thought of this speaker just looking at your Mac. This is an iMac, I'm assuming, with the nice aluminum front on it.
Yeah, yeah.
What else? What's the other piece of the recipe that gets somebody to get the best M&A transaction of the year?
Well, I found pain, and we solved the pain, and then we added pleasure. But there was a pivot inside of Braven. We saw that rugged durability side, and that was taking off incrementally stronger than the aluminum office side. And the competition in outdoor speakers was not as intense. Bose, Bowers and Wilkins, they were dominating the office. And so we saw that need, and we pivoted into waterproof and shock resistance. So we're just doing a few million in sales with the original launch. Then we added waterproof and shock resistance. We did YouTube videos around that where we throw a speaker from a 4-story building, have it bounce on the tar and roll all over and play fine. We'd run over it with a car and it would play fine. You could drag the speaker down Provo River or down a canal, throw it into water or a swimming pool, and it would work. That is when it took off and went into the tens of millions annual run rate. And this is in the first full year of business. Little example, we were the 6th best selling speaker in 2012 in the country. Might have been the world, with only 7 months of sales. The first 5 months we weren't selling. So we had 7 months of sales, and we sold more than the Bose SoundLink. Jeez. Because we added incremental innovation to a status quo. So this is something really important on sourcing. I tell almost every entrepreneur that I'm mentoring this. Go in the next 24 hours, go and find 50 suppliers. Communicate with all 50 of those suppliers. Ask them each 20 to 50 questions. Send them a profile of their factory to fill out. Ask them where they ship to, what's their specialty, how many staff they have. Qualify those 50 down to the top 10. Then get on a plane and go visit the top 10 and narrow it down to the top 3 and then choose. People so frequently bump into one factory, think they're lucky, and they start with that one factory. If I would have done that, I'd be dead today.
I'm getting doomed right now because of that. I picked somebody off of Alibaba to make a phone case brand for me, and And it's funny, I brought Blacksmith International, Lance Drollinger came on, and he told me that I was wrong. He said, just trust her, get your first run and see how it goes. I'm not that hopeful. And so I think this next time around, I'm going to be a little bit more careful and go to China.
Yeah. Yeah. At least, even if you don't go there, at least do 2 or 3 phone calls with management, ask them 50 questions and have a dialogue for a while. You can qualify so much through a dialogue.
You don't have to speak Mandarin to get
No,
this
you don't.
done. Yeah, not at all.
Almost all of their sales reps will speak English. So we pivoted a couple other times. We added a product called True Wireless to our higher end speakers. And we were awarded the M&A 2013 Deal of the Year. Amazing. In 2013. From idea to exit, that was 25 months, Braven was. And that was with a failure of the first launch under the name of SPAR.
Right.
So most of my competition would develop a speaker from design idea to production would be 16 to 18 months. We would do it in 4 to 5 months.
And then sell the company in just a little under half of the time that it takes them to, or a little less than double the time it takes them to actually make the product.
So let me answer a question that you were just asking a moment ago about winning principles.
Yeah.
1, focus. Don't do too much too early, and set out to be the best in the world at 1 to 3 things. If you're the best in the world at one thing on Amazon that everybody else doesn't have, everyone who wants that one feature is going to gravitate to your product, and you can separate yourself from the pack. Next, passion and speed. I won't invest in a company if the guys or girl is going to school full time, or if they're trying to do 2 businesses at the same time. You've got to be in 110%. Now, I don't say 100% because it takes more than everything you got. It's everything you got during all the business hours, plus the weekend, plus the call to China at 2 a.m.
Well, speak to those of us who are married, right? Like, Trisha's got to be a trooper, right? She's been with you.
Well, what I did is I would come home at 5:30 or 6, and I'd spend a couple hours with the family, and then I'd go back to work at 8:30 when everyone went to bed, and I'd work till 12, 1, 2 in the morning. That was typical. So the next thing, iterative innovation and evolutionary innovation. Don't try to build from a white canvas. Now, there are some business experts who actually preach the opposite of that. I very much disagree. If you take something that's already phenomenal, that has huge market demand, and then you add 1 or 2 or 3 things on top of it to improve it, you can differentiate and stand out and grow like nobody else. If you try to innovate in a white canvas, you're going to be like the Wright brothers jumping off of a cliff with little flaps on your hands saying, I invented the airplane.
Yeah, I'm of the impression that new ideas died with the internet, and that you just got to borrow. You said remix what's already out there. I agree.
Yeah.
It's the difference between being a Picasso and a Savan, right? Savan is this incremental guy. Picasso is just genius on the canvas, starting from scratch.
Another thing you mentioned on a winning principle is identify and market to your specific customer. Mm-hmm. We would actually give our customer a name, dress him or her,
avatar.
And say, this is the person who buys our Braven product. And our marketing, our packaging, our innovation, everything was targeting that person.
And I would, in the context of Amazon as well, specifically, I would say, okay, when is that person shopping? Identify the customer and say, when do they open their Amazon app?
Yeah.
What's going on? Or is it after dinner? What kind of colors do they want to see? Yeah. What kind of pain are they experiencing? Figure that out and build that into your listing. Build that into all your marketing material.
So wise. I couldn't agree more. Another one, packaging and marketing sells and builds a brand. So it's not just the core engineering inside the product, but it's also the packaging and the marketing. If those two sound awesome, you will get the customers. If if the product inside is awesome, you will keep the customer and they'll buy your 2.0.
And they might leave a review.
Yeah,
Which
exactly.
everybody lives and dies by it in our space.
Exactly, yeah. You're only as strong as your weakest link. So if you build the best product in the world and it ships from China to the US and the boat sinks in the water, you're dead. If you have one feature that breaks on most consumer products,
it's a negative review.
It's a negative review and they return it.
Nail in the coffin.
So another one, target major macroeconomic and human behavior shifts. You can assess the market and you can see major macroeconomic shifts. So I shifted away from VHS because I knew that it was going to die.
What do you listen to? What do you watch? How do you keep your pulse on the market?
Just read a lot, Google a lot. Back then I would just read a lot, just find out everything that's going on in the industries that you're targeting and just stay up on it. But always be looking for human behavioral shifts as well as major market economic shifts and move to align with those shifts. Yeah. And then be willing to pivot. Don't get so in love with your own idea. Think I'm a genius, I thought of this idea, that you just stick with your idea. Because almost nobody has their best idea on 1.0.
I totally agree with that.
If I would have stayed with my 1.0, I would have been dead doing high school graduation. That's like the worst business idea I could ever come up with.
But it led you to here.
It led me.
And Warren, thank you so much for everything. We're coming to the end of our time here. There's a lot that you could still talk about. Recent investment in the Seek guys. We're going to bring them on and have them talk about their augmented reality. I wanted to talk about your ALS. So sure. This has been, I followed it from the very beginning, and I see you sent me over a deck that had your thesis of ALS and the treatments and percentages and statistics and all kinds of really robust information that I think anybody in your situation, is probably going to be looking for and trying to find a solution and a cure. It's life or death obsession.
It is.
And I have seen that reflected in the stories that you've told. Talk about focus. It's not focus. This is obsessive, wonderfully benevolent obsessive behavior. Do you tend to do these kind of deep dives and statistics when you're running a business the same way that you've kind of done with ALS? And then just kind of give us some of the background and details of your story so far.
Very, very similar. I'm treating my ALS journey kind of like I treated my businesses. Failure is not an option. Mm-hmm. My neurologist told me in May of 2018, after diagnosing me officially with ALS, I pre-diagnosed myself as likely having ALS in January, several months before the neurologist diagnosed me, because all the symptoms pointed to it. Fasciculations on my arms, my legs, my upper body, muscle twitching all over the place, cramping, muscle spasticity. I had all the symptoms of lower motor neuron death from ALS. So I thought I had ALS, but I wasn't sure. When the neurologist diagnosed me with ALS, I asked him how long I had to live, and he said 90% of people that have ALS will die within, you've got 18 months to 3.5 years to live. Statistically, with most of that in a wheelchair, probably not being able to talk, not being able to use your arms. And I turned to him because I had been researching like crazy, and stem cells looked like a major potential ability to at least slow the progression of the disease, right? And help in many ways.
It reduces the inflammation of those motor neurons, and so they're
that's one of the major benefits. There's many other benefits. I did a podcast on these as well, where you could reference if you'd like. But I turned to him and I said, I'm really bullish on stem cells. What do you think? And he turned to me and said, quote, "There's not a shred of evidence that stem cells or any alternative treatment works for ALS. Don't waste your precious time on money on stem cells or any alternative treatment, unquote. Well,
seems bleak.
I was just like, I'm going to be my own doctor. If this is what I get from from one of the top doctors in the world.
I'm telling Walmart that I'm going to enforce this patent.
Exactly. So I decided I'm just going to do my own research and I'm going to do stem cells. The next day, I booked my first flight to Florida to do stem cell treatments. And I don't think I got a huge benefit from that because it was umbilical cord stem cells. Since then, I've had 44 stem cell treatments in the last 14 months. Probably more than anyone in the world for ALS. And I've gone at this crazy. In the first 6 months, I read 30,000 pages. I've read probably more than 55,000 pages of research now. That's more than I read from grade school through my MBA combined. So I'm going at this thing big.
You're the foremost patient expert, right? Yeah.
Guinea pig.
Where are we going? It's 2019, a few days before Christmas as of this recording. I mean, how far are we from figuring out a solution?
I think we're going to see a cure for many forms of ALS within the next 5 years.
5 years? Because there's like 100 genes that it affects.
Oh, there's so many genes. ALS is not one disease. ALS is a catchphrase for dying motor neurons. ALS is dozens of different diseases, and there's so many different genes, and the genes and the diseases and the triggers all mixed together. The official word in allopathic medicine is we don't know the cause, we don't know the reason, we have no cure. But a cure is coming. There's a lot of technology and innovation coming. Stem cells has been one big thing that I think has dramatically slowed things down. I invested in a company in Salt Lake called Clean, C-L-E-N-E, and they have a gold nanoparticle. I've been on that now for approaching 2 months, a little over a month and a half. A gold nanoparticle. I'm bullish on that. I'm on another couple other clinical trials. So I'm kind of doing all kinds of stuff, and I'm doing phenomenally well. I've atrophied a lot and lost a lot of strength. I have a lot of atrophy in my back, my shoulders, particularly my left arm, and my triceps the worst. But I'm doing super well. Last year in February, I went heli-skiing for 5 days, and I'm going again in February this year.
I see you golfing and playing pickleball with John Pastana and John Richards all the time. Yep. So it's keeping up.
Yep. So I'm in a fortunate situation that I can afford the treatments, but also that I have the speed and energy to go at it. I actually believe my passion for speed was the greatest thing that helped me, because I treated and slowed things down before I had functional loss.
Sure.
And I think that the treatments have kept it from spreading to the brain motor neurons and to other motor neurons and other parts of my body. And so it's way easier to stop progression than it is to regrow motor neurons or regrow muscle that's lost.
Same kind of deal with Alzheimer's. My grandpa's struggling with that right now. But man, what a journey. Where do I direct people? I think first and foremost, if you are a consumer product company or software company as well, you're getting into that space in your investments. You osbornco.com.
Osbornco.com, and there they can send inquiries in. Note though that after I got ALS, I believe in focus. So when I'm running a company, I'm not investing in other businesses. After I sell a business, then I typically invest in 6 to 10 companies a year. Once I got ALS, I stopped investing in new ventures unless it's aligned with going after a cure for ALS.
Oh, interesting.
So right now, I'm not looking at new deals.
Okay.
I do coach a few entrepreneurs and mentor a few, and I'm still on the board of multiple different companies and advise multiple companies. But I probably spend about 10 hours a week on my business affairs, and I spend about 50 to 60 hours a week learning about ALS and seeking to find the cure. And right now, the pace that I'm moving and progressing, I lost a lot last year. From January to July, I lost 20 to 30% of my upper body strength. And after doing my protocol, I've swallowed over 57,000 doses of supplements.
Jeez.
And done detoxing and 40 plus stem cell treatments. I started to regain that strength, and I regained all that lost strength.
Wow.
Now, it didn't last. Earlier this year, in the first 9 months, I lost about 20% back in my left arm strength. So the stem cells weren't a cure, but they definitely revived, I think, sick, dying motor neurons and made them functional again. But I don't think it actually cured things. So I'm still fighting, but at the pace that I'm progressing right now, I've got 10 to 20 years to live, and I think we're going to get to a cure in the next 5 years.
Awesome. Warren, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was a delight to have you.
Happy to. Thank you. Very, very good chatting with you. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the BuyBox Experts podcast. Be sure to click subscribe, check us out on the web, and we'll see you next time.